Hi, I'm retired NYPD Detective Vic Ferrari, and welcome to NYPD Through the Looking Glass podcast, where you'll get unique insight into the New York City Police Department. Before we get started, I encourage you to check out my Amazon author page, where you'll find my series of behind-the-scenes NYPD books, including NYPD Laughing in the Line of Duty. Today's guest is a childhood idol of mine. Growing up in the Bronx in the 1970s, I would read about him solving homicides in Manhattan's 6th Division. Before that, he helped bust the largest heroin ring in United States history, known as the French Connection case. After retiring from the NYPD, he became an accomplished actor and producer. His roles included machine gunning Sonny Corleone to death in The Godfather, parts in The French Connection, Donnie Brasco, Cruising, and countless other Hollywood classics. If that's not impressive enough, he's the author of a great book, Circle of Six, the true story of New York's most notorious cop killer and the cop who risked everything to catch him. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold. And here's a cover of the book with a young Randy Jurgensen on it. I'd like to welcome NYPD legend and retired detective Randy Jurgensen. Randy, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. There's a co-writer on that book, Rob Say.
Okay, shout out to Mr. Robert Say.
Yes.
Randy, you grew up in Harlem, correct?
He's a retired detective.
I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah, Yes. I was born 2 blocks south of 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. I was born at home. There was measles or something that was happening in the hospital. For the first 27 years of my life, my parents were superintendents. 5-floor walk-ups. I soon became known as the Super's Kid. I didn't think that I had a name. It was we know you're the Super's Kid, running and racing in the neighborhood. So my neighborhood of where I grew up with, and I think that this is important, my neighborhood was a mixed neighborhood. I ran with a gang. And yes, we got into trouble. And yes, George Carlin was part of the group. So,
I was gonna ask you about George Carlin. What was he like?
Well, let me just say that by the time that I was 12 years of age, I knew who was taking numbers. I knew where the wire room was. Knew who the bookmaker was. I know who. Where the money was transferred down at the bar. It was a way of living. I never heard it say illegal or whatever. In fact, the man that would take the numbers, I put him in the book. His name was Clint. He would come up the street and out loud and say, somebody, they hit the number, here it is, there's $200 for the minute. And of course, that just generated a whole lot more of business to play in there. But let me tell you something about this man. We had a family, not in my building, we had a family that was being put out. They were actually their furniture was being put out into the street. The sheriff's department did that, right? And of course, we were all standing there watching. The lights had been turned off, and he came up the street, and he went into the building where the two sheriffs were. Right. He came out of the building, and the 2 sheriffs walked away, and we picked up and put the furniture back into the apartment. That's the kind of a man he was. My mother was so good because there was a basement, and my mother was able to go into the basement of that building and turn the lights back on. This is the way that I was raised. This is important because it did come back to bite me in the backside, as they say. At 12 years of age, I would stand at 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue, right outside of Horn and Hardart there.
Okay.
And there was a wire room. And the wire room is where you went and you bet bet your horses. And there was nothing but radios and guys in there writing sheets down, all kinds of telephones going and so forth and so on. And they would stay in a location maybe 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, and then they would go. Then they would move to someplace else. Stay in there too long. It's going to get raided and so forth and so on. My job, standing at 125th Street, I knew where they moved to, and all of the horse players would come up to me. Yes, and I was being paid well, and then I would go to 3 bars on 125th Street, and I would pick up the work. I was 12 years old. I would pick up the illegal numbers work and get it over to Clint, which definitely was the bank. Now that's how I raised. Now I don't want to jump ahead, but and I'll tell you how I became a cop. But when I became a cop and they sent me over to 125th Street on the east side, it might have taken me 5 or 6 days, and I know who was taking the numbers. I knew who was taking the sports bets. My first encounter with the police, I guess maybe I was 10, 11, somewhere in there. On 125th Street, there was a milk factory. And the milk factory, they would load up the truck with milk, all kinds of milk. And it would labor up Broadway, which there was an incline. And George Carlin, myself, and 4 others, one guy would almost run out in front of the truck, waving the truck so it would slow down. We were able to jump up on the back, which had nothing but a canvas and chains, and out came the milk. And you know where the milk went? It went to the neighborhood. We went to whoever we could do with that, and of course the milk came home. Well, one time we got caught. Listen to this. It was a Saturday night, and it was the day before Easter Sunday, and the cops caught us, and they put us up against the bar window. All our fingerprints were on the bar window, and of course they took the names as best they could. You know what kind of names we gave,
right?
Smith, Jones, this, that, and everything else. But on Sunday morning, as people went to church, there was the powdered fingerprints all over the bar that all of us got caught. We would swim BA in the Hudson River on 125th Street. We would swim in our underwear. And we got caught a couple of times, and maybe even more than a couple of times. And it was the youth squad, and they would catch us. And, it was more like fun and games and stuff along the lines like that. And he would say, okay, what's your name? What's your name? So this one time, we get caught. And there's 5 of us. And George Carlin is like 4th down on the line. And you're smiling. I don't know if you know this story.
No, I don't.
So the guy alongside of me was he gives his name, and then I give the name, and the next guy gives the name, and now we come to George Carlin, and George Carlin looks straight at the cop and says, "The cop, what's your name? What's your name?" And he says, "Randy Jurgensen. I live at 1264 Amsterdam Avenue, apartment 10. He's known as the Supers Kid. Honest to God." And the cop took all that down. When I became a cop, that came up. That actually came up.
Did he?
That was George Carlin. That was George Carlin. I need to say this about George. George Carlin, I think that this will say it all. George Carlin was terribly bright and quick. George didn't have to do homework. George could be told something, and that was it. He was.
He absorbed everything
right across us. That was George Carlin. But there was that side of George Carlin, boy. Look, I'm not proud of this, and it's come up before. I never went one day to high school. I never did. The truant officer, so forth, they made me go to continuation school down at 16th Street. And so I was truly just working for the bookmaker. And I got caught too with that. I was working for the wire room, and the arrests were no longer, this wise-ass Supers Kid and stuff like that. So I did get caught. I did get caught coming in with what they call the work into a store on 124th Street and stuff like that. So the cop got me. Looked over his shoulder, and and with the finger, "You're the Supers kid. And he went into the store. So whatever Clint did, I didn't see anything. They came out, and I went into the store. And the first thing that Clint said to me, "Did they get the work?" I said, "No, I got it in my sock." Because if they took the work, then everybody would come out of the woodwork and say that they hit the. Okay, he was for joy. One last incident, and this marked me well. I was working in a grocery store, and after school, I was 10, and after school I would go down to the grocery store, and there would be boxes of what I had to pick up and deliver, and of course there was cigarettes and beer and stuff like that, and so I delivered it, and it was in the neighborhood of Juilliard. Columbia was 116th Street and stuff like that, so I would deliver it. So I was delivering it when two cops stopped me, and they said to me, "Once again, we know who you are, and they would help themselves to the beer and the cigarettes if it was there." And I said, "I'm telling my father." I said, I told the guy in the store, he told me, "Forget about it." I said, "I'm telling my father." And this cop turned to me and he said, "Hey, Spick, you can tell whoever you want. It happened a couple of more times." Okay. So now I become 16, and a lot of guys in my neighborhood, we're gonna join the army. Don't forget, this is 1949, 1950. This is 5 years after the Second World War, which we were all raised in, with the flags, the marching, and it was all over the news. It was just the Second World War. I remember on December 7th, 1941, which was my birthday, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. That was the first time that I ever saw my mother and father embrace each other and cry. And they cried. So I now want to join the service. And of course, at 16, you really can't do it. But I'm hounding my parents, just like the other guys, hounding my parents. So my father turns to my mother and says, "Betty, you sign him. I'm not going to sign him." That way I would stop pestering my mother. My mother signed. I was with this guy, Nicky Matskew. And I said, "Well, I got my mother to sign and stuff like that." And Mike says, "Let's try it." So we go down to 42nd Street. I showed him an altered birth certificate. I showed him everything. And he says to me, "But your mother signed. Where's your father?" I looked him dead in the eye and I said, "My father's dead." And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I was in the Army. I'm up at Fort Devens, Massachusetts. And the MPs show up, and they put me on a bus to 42nd Street, where I was met by another MP and my father and the local priest. I said to my father, "I am now 17. I said, this is really what I want to do," and stuff like that. And my father said, "All right, son, I will sign you, but just stay home for Thanksgiving and Christmas," which I did. I stayed home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I was in the military maybe 3 months or 4 months, and I heard that you got extra money if you did something hazardous duty. And the hazardous duty was becoming a paratrooper. So I was first online. I signed up to get more money. I became a paratrooper, And yes, I went off to Korea. I earned a few medals. I got a couple of Purple Hearts and stuff like that. And I came home. And when I came home, there was absolutely no work. The most popular record at that particular time was the Silhouettes, and it was called Get a Job. And we heard that constantly, get it, and we tried. So one day, and of course I go back working for Clint, who's now been elevated in Harlem. He's now a big mucky muck. In fact, he's so big that he is able to sit down with the boys from Pleasant Avenue, and he runs all of the numbers in Harlem. That's
Can I ask you, was Clinton affiliated with Bumpy Johnson?
No, but see, that was drugs. But Clinton.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but so now I'm doing that again. I'm doing that again. And one day, and I can't remember who it was. We're playing stickball on 116th Street, and a guy shows up, and he's got for the fire department, the police department. He's got the post office. He's got the parks department. So we fill them all out. We just fill them all out. I never had an intention of becoming a cop. It never entered my mind. Yes, out of all of them, who calls first? The police department. And I'm in the police academy. Do you think that Randy Jurgensen, being in the police academy, becoming a cop, is not still out there taking the numbers, doing whatever, running the numbers, picking them up at the banks and so forth and so on? I'm still doing that. So I'm at 125th Street one day, and Sonny Altameri and I can't remember his other name. And they grab me. They put me up against the wall. And they're tossing me. And up the street is the biggest crap game that you could ever see. Tell your friends we're coming for them too. And I said, I got nothing to do with the crap game. They're very polite, very firm. No problem whatsoever. So I said, can I tell you something? I said, tell me whatever you want. No handcuffs, but now I'm being taken in. I said, can I tell you something? And they said, yeah, what do you want to tell me? I said, I'm in the police academy. And he says, what? I said, yeah, I'm in the police academy. He says, you have a tin? And I said, yeah. And I went down and I pulled out my tin. He looked at his partner and he said, well, this is a first. He said, we've seen you out here for the longest of it. He said, what are you doing? You're going to lose the job. He says, this is what's going to happen. And I said, okay. I said, all right. I said, I promise I'm not going to do this anymore. And I didn't. So I graduated from the police academy, and Vic, I was assigned to the 25th precinct on the east side. And when I got over there, once again, I want to slam on the desk here. When I got over there, standing on the stoop right outside of the precinct, is Sonny Altameri and why can't I think of his other name? The guys
grabbed you.
Who caught me doing numbers. And I looked at them, and of course they were roaring and laughing. And the next day, the entire police department in the 25th precinct, my nickname was, hey, Numbers, where you working today? Hey, Numbers, what are you doing here? And of course, I met Sonny Grasso. And Sonny Grasso already was becoming a bit of a legend. This is all before Eddie Egan. So we were cops together working in the 25th precinct. I began to sort of cut a reputation in the 25th precinct. I was working 2nd Avenue, and the Italians, with the Italian shirt on, young, 20, whatever it was, sitting on the chair backwards with the chair in the side, and it was, hey, when is the shine going to wear off that? Hey, hey, rookie, are you shaving yet? Come on, and it was, and it happened more than once. So finally, one day during the day, I walked across the street. I was off post. I walked across the street. He was sitting there, and I said to him, and there were 3 or 4 of them, and I said to him, I said, "You got a problem with me?" And he says, "Yeah, you got." I said, "We could settle this problem." He says, "Yeah, you got a gun." And so I said, "I'll tell you what I'll do. There's the florist shop across the street, Frankie Florist Shop." He turned out to be Phil Cardillo's uncle.
Oh.
So I said, "I'll meet you over there in the backyard." Yeah, of course. I went back at the end of the 8 to 4. I changed my clothes. By now I know Jimmy Uricchio, Sonny, and Randy. You know, yeah. I said, "I'm doing it." I said, I'm doing it, and that's it. And so I went down there. I went into the backyard. He was there. There were 3 guys in the backyard. I came down the stairs. Sonny was at the top of the stairs. Jimmy was at the top of the stairs. Dick Oletta was at the top of the stairs, right? And I went down, and we walked over. And as I walked up to him, and he was standing there with a bit of a smile, I let him have it, and I broke his nose. And down he went, and there was blood all over the place. And the other 3 guys, they didn't know what to do. They were nowhere moving towards me whatsoever. I don't know if they called an ambulance or not. I came back out, and I went home, and that's it. The next day, I go to work. As soon as I come into work, "Captain wants to see you." I said, "Okay." So I go into the captain's office. And he says, "What did you do?" My answer was, "I'm a cop. I'm a man. I'm not going to take that." The captain looked at me. He smiled. He says, "That's never going to happen again, right?" I said, "No, it's not going to happen again." And he says, "Get out of here." And I got out of there. And of course, the 6th Division now knew this. And his uncle was a bit of a mucky muck. Nothing ever came of it. But here again, the reputation began to build and stuff like that, and so forth and so on. I make a very good gun collar, where a guy killed a guy with the gun, and I was in uniform, and by now I'm in a radio car. The first day that I was in a radio car, I get a call about a maternity, and when we get there, the baby's coming. And in the room and in the kitchen is 4 chickens, and the chickens are running through the house. There's a dog chasing them. This is the truth. The first time, my first job in the radio car, but that turned out. So now I'm in court. I'm in court, and I'm in uniform, and I arraigned the guy. Blah blah, no bail, this, that, and everything else, and. A superior officer, which I didn't know, comes over to me, and he says, "Officer, where do you work?" And of course, it's on my collar, so I said, "I work in the 2-5 precinct." "Are you a city kid?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "Have I done something wrong?" He said, "No." He said, tomorrow, he says, "I want you to report to the 1st precinct, down to the 1st precinct, which is now the museum. I want you to report down to the 1st precinct." He says, there will be orders. He says, that's what you do. I went back to the command. And the next morning, I report to the first precinct, and there's Mario Biaggi. I report, and I'm in uniform. And Biaggi says to me, "What are you doing with that?" I said, "With what?" He says, "What are you doing with the bag?" That's what they called
Right.
it. And I said, "I was told to report down here." He said, "Come back tomorrow." He says, "Not with that."
Right.
And I said, "Okay, Lieutenant." The next day, I reported down there. And I don't think I ever saw the uniform ever again. But in any case, I went down there, and I became an undercover, and there were just 7 of us at that particular time. I mainly worked in Alphabet City, you know, and this is so important. Everybody on the job at that particular time. There's nothing wrong with me saying this. Everybody that was on the job really looked like Eddie Egan. And so when you get somebody that's of the complexion, you know, that I am, and of course, nobody grew their hair then. You couldn't have hair below your ears. And so when my hair grew out, et cetera, and so forth and so on, it was just very easy for me. I knew the lingo. So that's how I became, you know, that's how I became a narcotic detective. But so I know that you have some questions to ask me, but go ahead, please.
I got plenty. So you're working the narcotics division and you're paired with Egan and Grasso.
Yes.
What was that like?
Two different worlds. You know, if there's a scale of 1 to 10, I'm working 1 and they're working 10. And I think you know what that means. I'm buying half loads, $75 half loads in the street. They're working on keys. At that time, a key was worth $32,000. Look what we're talking about. You know, what it would be worth today. Yes, but yes, working. I really got to work with Sonny and Eddie when we started to make the movie. But yes, working with Grasso, and working with Egan. Look, I'm going to be honest here. You know, there was really no working with Egan. If you know what I'm saying.
My way or the highway?
Yeah. Well, you know, he knew everything. You know what I'm saying. So, and the saying was back then that Egan was a Doberman Pinscher, but Sonny had the leash.
Just curious, like how close was the French Connection case to the movie?
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, I have learned, I didn't know it then, but I have learned, being in the business, and I am in the business, I have learned that it has to be entertaining. Right. I've also learned that if you're going to do something factual, 9 times out of 10, I'm using that, it's boring.
Right.
And so you have to add something in there. And what you're adding is fiction. And so what that turns out to be, the French Connection was faction. It was faction.
I like that.
Did they make the bust? Was that the amount? Was Tony LoBianco portraying the real guy? Yes. Did they get it? Did the Frenchman escape? Absolutely. Was the FBI agent shot and killed in the movie? No, he was not. In fact, he sued, and he got a check for $10,000. He sued 20th Century. He got a check for $10,000. His name was Frank Waters, the FBI agent who I worked with, and he took the check and he blew it up as big as it was. He went up to Elaine's bar where all of the artists, and he hung the check up behind the bar.
What did he sue for?
He didn't get killed. He didn't get shot.
Okay, so was he a pain in the ass like they portray, like Bill Hickman was in the movie?
You know what? You know that Joe Pistone?
Yeah, sure.
Nebraska. he's a brother. I mean, I know him from 1969. He's the godfather to my 42-year-old daughter, right? He's an FBI agent, right? He too is a pain in the ass. Frank Waters a pain in the ass. I never worked with a Fed that wasn't a pain in the ass. But yeah,
Oh my God.
but they were good. That Egan get along with Frank Waters, where there loud shouts and this and so forth and so on. But you understand, Eddie Egan had about 8 or 9 partners before he got Sonny. And it was Sonny who was able maybe to curtail him or to work with him or do whatever it was. I have no idea. Eddie Egan hated everybody. I don't care if you were Spanish, black, Irish, what. He hated everybody. He wasn't racist. He hated everybody clean across the board. He did. That was Eddie Egan. Was he a good cop? Yeah, he was. Was he honest? Yes, he was. Yes, he was. But you're asking me, did he get along? Did he get along with Frank Waters? Of course not. He's lucky he got along with Sonny. But Frank, he knew how to push a button and stuff like
Right.
that. I only saw one altercation, and it was, yeah. It never was blows, but no, yeah. And Sonny constantly settled it. So another question about the
Yeah, what was it like to work? I've seen him in documentaries, and he's an impressive guy. What was it like to work with William Friedkin?
I don't know if we have enough time here. So I met Billy Friedkin on the East Side. This is after the book has been written. Robin Moore came down to narcotics to write a book. Robin Moore had written a book called The Green Berets. So he came down to write, and he got permission to write about narcotics just in general. And the first person he ran into was Eddie Egan, so therefore it became...
Egan story.
But you know what? There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Maybe it wouldn't have been a book if it wasn't for Egan.
That's true.
So yeah. So now the book is out, and I only hear rumblings, and Sonny's still in narcotics, and I am now a second grade homicide detective working in the 6th Division, and this is 1971. So, and I'm chasing cop killers. Piagentini and Jones killed in 1971, Foster and Laurie, Stewart and Plate right into 2-8. Thank God they weren't killed. So that's what I'm assigned. I'm working out of the 2-8, but I am assigned to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. But there's no answers in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office as to what's going on. So I'm working out of the 2-8, and I'm working for Nick Cirillo. That's very important you remember that name. I'm working for Nick Cirillo, who's literally running the Manhattan DA's office, especially when it comes to the cop killings. So now, Sonny calls. I go over to the East Side. There's Billy Friedkin. There's Phil D'Antoni. I don't know these people. There's some crew members. And if you want to believe this, there's Jimmy Breslin. And Randy, yeah. This is Billy, this is Phil. Blah, 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 blah. Randy, Sonny, show him how you toss somebody. I'm tossing Jimmy Breslin. Jimmy Breslin's turning around, turning this and that and everything else. And I, nowhere did it dawn on me that Jimmy Breslin was going to portray Eddie Egan. Maybe that lasted 5 minutes. Maybe it lasted 15 minutes. I don't know. I never saw him again. Now, throughout it, I heard it was going to be Robert Mitchum, and that's who Egan wanted. And I don't even know if it was a consider. That's above my pay grade at that particular time. And let me tell you something. This belongs here. You know the biggest star that was attracting the girls and the people to the French Connection? Tony Lobianco, coming off a picture called The Honeymoon Killers. So, okay, this is what you got to do. So, I now take them. It was more than this, but I now take them. I am doing the real job for REEL. And Gene and Roy are with me. But who's in front of them? Billy Freakin. Billy Freakin. And we would go down, kick the door in, take the shooting gallery. I was very selective. I wouldn't take the women. You, okay. Well, Ambrose, I don't think he's going to make the night. Yep, forget it. And I had that reputation. And off we go. And down into court. And the DAs, they would look at me, say, Jurgensen. You know, but I created numbers. So I took them. And I'll tell you, there was a bar called the Double Door Bar. And one was on the side street and one was on the main avenue, 8th Avenue. I would actually take, I'm talking the late 60s, early 70s, I would actually take a paddy wagon, and for the people who don't know what a paddy wagon is where you put the prisoners and you drive them down to court. And I would have the paddy wagon back up onto the sidewalk, right up against the door, the bar door. I would go in there. Only if I must have done that 15 times, maybe more, and only once I fired a shot. So I went in there, you know, let's say the one time I fired, bang, I fired a shot, everybody freezes, all the crap is hitting the floor like you can't believe it, Saturday night specials, junk, just junk, and everybody equal. No discrimination here. Every one of you are getting charged with every bit of it. Of course it's not going to stick up. But what it did do is that some of these people were wanted
homicides and burglaries.
We had one in a homicide, only one. And it was remarked to me by a court officer, how come there's never any female prisoners? And I said, I don't know. I don't know why there's no female prisoners. You know what it is to take a female prisoner?
Yeah.
Forget it. So I was pretty well running the show. You know, I'm trying not to brag here, but I was pretty well running the show. So now I'm going to do the same thing, only I got Billy Freakin, Eddie Egan, and Roy Scheider. Okay? So in the door we go, down it comes, and so forth and so on. All right, we're locking them up, and so forth and so on. And this is what we're going to do. And here's the first instance that this happened. Let's say I did it 3 or 4 times. Don't forget, this is weeks. This is not 1 week. This is over weeks. Not one day, I promise you, not one day that I lose doing my job chasing cop killers. No, I did not. Did I go nights with maybe 3 hours sleep? Yes. But so one day, Billy Freakin has a gun. You know, right then and there, you know, and and my partner, big black guy, Ambrose, great detective, and I learned so much from him, and he's looking at me, and he went like this. He said to me, Randy, no, this stops, Randy, and I said, I'll take care of it. And I went to Billy Freakin, and of course there's laughing and this and that and everything else. And Billy says to me, Eddie Egan said that I could do this. I said, he did he? Okay. I turned back and I went to Sonny and I said, you know what? I'm not doing this. And Sonny was, Randy, I said, I'm not doing this, Sonny. It's going to cost me my job. I said, Sonny, you
give the director of a Hollywood movie a firearm to do raids.
So that stopped. Now here is 2 things to take note of, and it pertains to the picture. We would get up into the precinct and we were fingerprinting them and stuff like that. And Gene Hackman said this to me. Gene said, what happens to them now? And I said, they'll spend the night. I said, but there's no more night court. I said, they'll spend the night. I'll get them down into court. And I said, they'll probably be released. And he says, so they have to stay here locked up for the night. And I said, they do. He walked out. Gene Hackman walked out of the precinct. Gene Hackman didn't participate in any of this. And that carried on. They did not get along from day one on this picture.
Egan and Hackman.
I am to the picture. So this continued on. And then before that, now this is, I want to go back. Just remember where we're at right now. After Kennedy was killed, and I was in narcotics, 18 months. I forgot I was a cop. I get a call to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Najari is the DA. This could go on for an hour. I get over there, and there's a captain, and there's another cop there. I don't know what he's doing there. And Najari says to me, homosexuals are being threatened, kidnapped. He said, and your assignment, and he did say this, if you take it, your assignment, he says, is that you have to, and here's the words, you have to ingratiate yourself into that life. That's this went on for well over an hour, so I'm speeding it up. And I said, all right. And he said to me, I'll never forget it, Najari said to me, and the captain agrees, you can't look like that. Because I'm looking at the hair, the narcotics. Right. So I go over there, I befriended people, I got into the clubs, I saw what was going on, and throughout this, I might have been there a month and a half, maybe even 2 months, and I would meet this captain. I'd meet him at 125th Street because we were paid in paper back then. We got paper checks, so I would meet him back there, and I said to him, I said to him one time, and I did say this, I can't do this anymore. I forgot it. I'm a cop. I can't do this anymore. He said, no, you really have to do it, so forth and so on. He says, and I'll tell you why. He said, they, and he used the word, they're now killing these people. I said, what do you mean they're killing these people? He said, there are parts in the river. He says, there are parts in a 55-gallon drum. There are parts of homosexuals. He says, you have to. He says, you really have to continue. And so I did. And I went back, and now in that community, they were well aware. And the word was out. It was cops that were doing this. Yep, cops that were doing this. And one was white and one was black, and they soon became known from the police department, from this captain to me, as the Salt and Pepper Team. And I it's not that I don't want to work on cops. I don't want to do it. It just goes against the grain here. It goes against the grain. I mean, if this was so, you should have a task force. You should have something. Right. Honest to God, once again, I'm not bragging. I'm the only one. I know the detectives that caught the cases with the floating body parts and all that stuff. So one night, I'm cruising, and there's a party. There's a party down, and they called it the yards, where all the trucks would park on the west side over there. At once. Yeah. But in any case, so I go down there, and walking towards me with a white male is a black guy and a white guy, and they got him by his arms, and they're walking. I followed them. I followed them. And they got into a car. I got the plate number immediately with the plate number in the car. And I ran just 3 blocks, that's all it was, to the precinct. I ran in the precinct, told them who I was, told them that they kidnapped this guy, told them that they put it on the air right. Do you know, as I was standing there, a cruising car, cops got them.
Did a car stop?
They got, not a car stop, the plate number and stuff like that. And I mean, it was high voltage, let's put it that way. It went through that whole division down there about the car. Instantly they got them. So wherever they took them is where they booked them. You understand? Of course, I am the complainant and stuff like that, so forth and so on. So with that, Vic, I get a gold shield, Vic, and I'm sent to the 2-6 precinct. I walk into the 2-6 precinct, right? Once again, talking fast, talking hard. There's the 2 cops that called me those names and were taking their beer and stuff. I went over the desks. I only caught one. I only hit one. And the sergeant that was there and the 2 cops, and I was under arrest. They placed me under arrest in the 2-6 precinct. And the captain came down, then the guy from the division came down, and I just sat right there. And they left the desk turned over. They never picked the desk up. But I get called into the division commander. But he's not questioning me. The lieutenant from the squad is questioning me. And the captain is there. There's about 2 other people there. And of course, the whole precinct, everybody. So the lieutenant says, what's going on here? And I told him, word for word. I said, this is what they did. This is the names that they called me. And my father who was my father was an rated amateur boxer at the time. I said, if my father had got them, my father would be in jail instead of me. And the lieutenant said, you're not going to jail. And I said, thank you, Lieutenant. I plain outright said to him, am I going to lose the shield? He says, you're not going to lose anything, Jurgensen. He says, we're going to tell you, you're not going to tell us. And I said, all right. And he said, you are being transferred. I was transferred on a teletype to the 2-8 precinct, and that's how I'm in the 2-8, that's how I'm in the 2-8 working. And if you don't think that didn't follow me over there, again, okay. So here we are, we're making the French Connection, Eddie, Sonny, myself, Billy Freakin', and we're now making the French Connection.
You were involved in having those 2 guys that were killing the homosexuals down in the gay clubs. How many homicides were they able to pin on those guys? And you going undercover in the gay clubs was the inspiration for the movie Cruising.
Yeah. According to Billy Freakin', it's based on me. It's based entirely on me. We were on an airplane coming back from, don't forget, Cruising is 80. I've done 5 and 6 halfway around the world with Billy Freakin'. I'm in France with Billy Freakin'. I'm in Santa Domingue. So I am Billy's man. So now we're on an airplane, and Billy says to me, Randy, he said, I've optioned a book, I believe it's by Gerald Walker. I've optioned a book called Cruising. He says, I don't want you to read it. I haven't read it to this day. I don't want you to read the book. He said, but you made those arrests. You did. And I said, I did. I did. He said, we're going to write it. We're going to write it. And Billy, once, twice a week, sometimes 3 times, down to Billy's apartment on 96th Street, and Billy's writing. I don't see what he's writing. Then the questions are coming like... So now, It's 1 o'clock in the morning. My wife can tell you. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. And Billy freaking calls. And he says, Randy, I need to get the killer, perpetrator. I need to get in his apartment. I need for Al Pacino to get into his apartment. And we can't get a warrant. How are we going to do this? And I said, Billy, Al now knows exactly the moves that this guy's making. Al now knows when this guy leaves the apartment. Yeah, okay. So then Al goes across the street, jumps on the fire escape, goes up the fire escape, and goes into the apartment. I don't know what you want him to do. He does, and and put the fan back and so forth and so on, and go out the door. And Billy says, but what if the cops? And I said, Billy, I've done this. I hadn't. Billy, I've done this. I said, if the cops come up, I show them my shield and say, guys, no, I don't need any help. They go away. Billy, I'm a detective with a gold shield. Billy, when are you going to learn that the gold shield is the following? The following. It's God, the Pope, and the gold shield. It's God, the Pope, and the gold shield. I'm surprised he didn't use that. And that's how that scene got in there. In Cruising, in the French Connection, them going into the bar, that got in there because I did it with them into the bar, with the two-way. At the end, Vic, Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider and Billy Freakin were narcotic detectives. Billy Freakin could actually go out and do it because Billy stayed with me and went to court the next morning. Billy attempted one time to fingerprint one of the prisoners. No, Billy Freakin, I saw it then and I've learned it. Billy Freakin is not going to do something unless there isn't some sort of a substance that it happened or it's real or whatever
right.
It was.
And then a couple of years after the French Connection, you, Lobianco, and Roy Scheider and Phil D'Antoni show up in the 7-Ups.
That's the next year.
I mean, talk about two hits back to back. It was almost like the French Connection 2. It was that good.
Yeah. Also understand, the producer who's going to win the Academy Award, Phil D'Antoni, for the French Connection, is the producer of Bullet.
Oh, that's right. And Hickman.
You talk about a car chase. And that's something that I can really discuss in detail. They decided that they were not going to do that car chase because that car chase had no people in the street, bright, broad daylight, sunlight, yes, the growl of the engine, and it's Steve McQueen. That's what really makes it. And by the way, the guy who plays the Fed in the French Connection,
right, Bill Hickman.
He's the driver.
I know.
In Bullet. So when you talk about clout and weight, hey, Phil D'Antoni, Academy Award winner, producer of Bullet. He prior to that, he did Sonny and Cher specials. No, he brought credentials. So, and you know what? Phil D'Antoni was always this. Phil D'Antoni was always this. No matter what was going on, no matter how, we can't get it. Oh, it's going to rain. Oh, it's going to... Phil D'Antoni, you know what I'm saying?
Never panicked.
No. I don't think that, yeah. Once the money faucet is turned on, and you're being delayed 2 hours of shooting, nobody turns off the money faucet.
Right.
I could really truly understand that. I really could. I did a picture called Heart, and the reason I tell you that is that I went to Cannes, and while I was at Cannes, I took a bus over to Marseille, and I stayed in Marseille a couple of days looking for the Frenchman. I looked for the Frenchman that got away. Of course, nobody would speak to me. Nobody would do anything. They wouldn't do it. He's a hero.
Over
During the
France.
Second World War, he was a big smuggler. The French loved this guy, you know? So, and he was on public radio.
Hiding in plain sight.
You know, all I wanted to do was talk to him. I would shake his hand. It's Randy Jurgensen, so something like that.
You think he would have remembered you?
No, I'll tell you why he wouldn't remember me. Because I was only there when he was being the first time when they had them. Where the hell did they have them? No.
You don't think he would have remembered you?
No. So we're on the set of The French Connection, and they're rehearsing. And Billy is playing Gene Hackman, and Alex Stevens is the president of the East Coast Stuntmen's Association, which I'm a lifetime member. And Alex is going to perform the stunt, so you always have another stuntman there. So I see Alex go through all the motions, and down the stairs he comes. Rehearsal, and he comes down. These are hard stairs. So I walk over to Billy and I said, Billy, you're going to film it this way? And Billy's doing things and yeah. And I said, but Billy, I mean, you can't do this. Now, once I said you can't, it was not, Billy's not doing things anymore. And he said, why not? I said, Billy, the guy's lost his gun. The guy is at the top of the stairs. I said, Billy, he's got his hands up. I said, you're having Eddie Egan shoot him in the back. Eddie Egan's a pain. Whatever I said, but he wouldn't do that. This is murder and stuff like that. And Billy looked at me and he says, "You want to go through that again?" I said, "No, Billy. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do and so on." And Billy freaking looked at me, and I learned my lesson. Billy freaking says, "I'm directing this picture, Randy." And I said, "Okay." And I walked away. Fast forward, 1,200 people in the theater. And here comes that scene. And I'm standing with Sonny and Dick Oletta, and we're standing in the back. And up, he shoots him, and there's that moment of where you could hear a pin drop. 1,200 people stand up shouting, screaming, yay! Billy freaking runs up the aisle and he says, "It works for them, it works for me, I hope the fuck it works for you, Randy." Not only that, he sends me the poster with the guy, and Gene is shooting the guy in the back on the poster, and he said, "I hope it works." Billy sent me the poster. And if you look at that poster, if you look at that scene, Gene Hackman, he's killing it and
shooting a guy, an unarmed man in the back.
Guy in the back with his hands up.
Which goes against everything a cop is taught in training.
Okay. Hey, listen. Thank you for your patience and time. I'm having fun here.
I hope you are. Yeah. What was Roy Scheider like?
Roy Scheider's an actor.
He looked like a tough guy, like he got his nose broken a bunch of, because he was a boxer, right?
He did. Every picture I work with Roy Scheider, two things would happen. If I'm working a picture with Billy or working a picture with Roy Scheider, Roy Scheider, "Are we jogging?" I said, "We are, Roy." "Yep, we are." Roy was a sun worshiper, and you never waited on Roy Scheider. I'm not saying that you waited on anybody else, but that was
regular guy.
Roy Scheider was great, and he loved to tell the story about the shark with us.
Jaws?
Yeah, he told that story many times. And the sad fact is that, I was with Roy at Sloan Kettering. I went like once a week. He used to go there, and they were doing what they call washing his blood. I guess they would take it out. They didn't put in new blood. They took it out and they did something to the blood. I'm speaking in layman's terms. I probably don't know what I'm talking about. And then they put it back, and then This took a couple days. And so I remember the last time that I went, and he didn't make it. I always told you, I worked with Roy Scheider, and he would say to me, Randy, where's the, we're jogging. I work with Billy Freakin. We're in France. Billy Freakin says, Randy, did you find the basketball court? Randy, did you find it? Yeah. You know what it is in San Domingo? Trying to find a basket. We would get there. That was the first thing. We're scouting. We're doing this. And did you get a basketball court? The teams consisted of Louis DeGimo, Joe Pistone, which is Donnie Brasco, myself, Sonny, Phil D'Antoni, whatever we could in New York that we could get together, and we played at that Catholic school. I got that gym. It's in the 60s, Cardinal. And we played against The Exorcist, Billy Freakin's picture, The Exorcist. He had Teamsters and stuff. So Phil D'Antoni, myself, and we played, and we played. And of course, this, okay. So the next day we're on the street. And Phil's on the street, got cameras, everything is all loaded up. And a hearse pulls up. A hearse pulls up. And the guys get out, they're all dressed in a hearse uniform. And they come out with this big, enormous flowers, this whole wreath. And he puts the flowers in the street. And it says, 7-Ups, rest in peace. And the hearse drives off. And of course, Phil's like, and then after about 15 minutes, Phil comes up to me. It's always me. Phil comes up and he says, get that fucking thing out of here. I said, okay. I went down, I found a florist shop, and we turned it into that's Billy Freakin. He was going to do The Exorcist. I went with him. Just outside of Virginia, something town. And we went in, and he met with the priest. I did not. And he met with the priest. And when he came, I mean, this was hours. This was hours. They sent for coffee and stuff, and I was outside. And I came out, and we were going to leave. I was introduced and so forth and so on, and this, that, and everything else. And in that conversation there is when I found out that what that priest had done, it was a boy, not a girl. The exorcism was on a boy. I accompanied Billy on all of those things. I did. And when I went out to California, no matter what I was doing in California, I stayed at Billy's house. I went out to California on some business. I truly don't remember what it was, and when I got there, there was a car with a guy. I could have been a Teamster, and he drove me to Billy Freakin's house. Billy Freakin was off in Europe getting some award or whatever, and I stayed at Billy Freakin's house. Yeah, that was Billy. That was Billy.
Yeah, I love the documentary about him. I was fascinated.
So whenever we got into trouble, and there were problems, whenever we got into trouble, one time when Billy was not well, he sent me the following letter. He said, Randy, this is going to turn out all right, but I'm going to take a train down to Baltimore, and I'm going to meet a guy by the name of Nat Glick, and he's going to make everything okay. It comes that Billy went for coffee, a bagel, every morning, and the waiter who waited on him was Nat Glick.
Nat Glick.
And Nat would say to Billy, you're going to make a picture. I want to be in the picture. I definitely want to be in the picture. And Billy would say, oh, okay, we're going to be in the picture. And that's how Nat Glick got into the picture.
He was such a smart ass. I love it.
Billy would say he did what he had to do to take care of it, because we got in trouble over me getting the morgue, for Billy to film in the morgue, which was never done before and never done after that. I had to do some things to get Billy in there to get it with a small camera crew. And of course, I went in there. That's my opening scene in the picture of cruising. It's in the morgue. And Billy,
Bellevue?
yeah, it has to be REAL for Billy to put it on REEL. So I got him that. And I got caught. And I took the full weight. I nothing on the picture. I took it all. And of course, I got a near and near to this day dear friend that I talk to every 2 weeks, Michael Bodden.
DME?
Yeah. So he
I
says,
know who that is.
well, Randy, he says, I'm going to be up on the Bronx on something. And I said, okay. So when I knew that he was going up on the Bronx, I said, Billy, very light camera crew and stuff, go. Like, come on. And so I'm going in there, and there's the cop. And there's the cop there. And guess what I do? Gold shield. In we went. But I got caught. And I was in trouble. And so Billy got me big lawyers and so forth and so on. And once again, he says, this will work out, Randy. But if it don't work out, take a train down to Baltimore and see Nat Glick. And I said, okay, Bill. I never went to court. Nothing. I have no idea of what happened. Have no idea of what happened. But I made another dear friend there. My movie career, thanks to the people that I worked with, I mean, if you think that you can outrun Burt Reynolds on a jog, and whether it was a test or not, I have no idea. John Travolta, I wouldn't say anything bad about it. Any of these guys. And yes, I worked with Christopher Reeves before.
And Superman.
Yeah, and I'm in Superman. Yeah, and that's how I met that big director who stayed. Yeah.
Let me ask you, how did you get the role of machine gunning James Caan in The Godfather?
The first assistant director on The Godfather, I was doing security, and I had Brando. I had Brando, and I did some bouncing with James Caan. You keep bringing these things out. I'm going to tell you.
That's fine.
I'm working in Harlem one night, and I get a call from Midtown Precinct from a cop that I happen to know, that I went on the job with. His name is George. He's no longer with us. He says, Randy, there's a couple of guys down here. He says, they're throwing your name all over the place. And I said, okay, we're talking on cops' phones. And I said, okay, gee, I'm sorry about that. And I hung up the phone. I get in. I don't take the squad car. I take my own car, and I drive down to the Midtown Precinct. There's George standing outside. Randy, he says, you got to get these guys out of here. He says, the desk sergeant, he's here. And I said, what are they here for? He says, they went through a red light and they got a phony license. They got a phony license. But all they keep saying is Randy Jurgensen. So I said, they're in the holding cell. So I got to walk past the sergeant. On the desk. He's down like this. I walk past the sergeant on the desk. I go into the back room. It's James Caan and Salazzo, the guy that plays Salazzo.
Yeah, you know who you're talking about, Virgil.
There they are. And James Caan is behind the bars looking like this.
Which precinct?
Midtown. 34th Street.
Okay, the South, okay.
The one that looks like a castle?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's a traffic one. I'm not.
Yeah, now it's a traffic division.
Yeah. So, okay. So I get them out. And I'm walking with George. And Salazzo, we got to get his name. So he says, I want my license back. And I looked at him and I said, I had done some bouncing with Jimmy Caan, but not with him. And I said, let's just get out of here. He says to me in front of George, and we're almost to the desk sergeant, and he says, I paid $100 for that license. He says, I want that license back. It's a phony license. I paid $100 and I want that license back. Just like central casting, just like you see in the movie, the desk sergeant is like this, looking down. He doesn't look up, and he says, "Detective, get them out of here, or you're all under arrest." Military. I get them outside. And Jimmy Caan is arguing with Al Lettieri, and Al Lettieri says, this is not right. I paid $3 for that license. They get off and they get in the car. Well, of course, we never bring that back to the movie set or anything like that. But every now and then, Jimmy Caan would say to me, "Thanks, Randy. Thanks." I said, forget it. So, yeah.
So through Caan, you were able to machine gun him?
And he says to me, "You're in the military." He says, "And you were a paratrooper." And I said, "Yes." I said, "Yes." He says, "And they have machine guns." And I said, yes, we do. His name, sweetheart of a guy. And I said, he said, "Well, the director wants you, to show him how you use a machine gun and stuff along the lines like that." And that's how that started. And so they came up with a machine gun, and Coppola, and he says, I don't know if it was Coppola. He says, "We need 3 other guys," and so I picked the other 3 guys, and one was Dick Oletta. Sonny's not in that. Dick Oletta, Jimmy Aricchio, and so here again, it's not working. You're firing blanks against candy glass. It's not working. So he says, "Look, the next time, just poke the machine gun to it." And Coppola says, "And say, rat-ta-ta-ta, just poke it through." So I'm getting ready to do the scene. He comes over to me, Coppola comes over to me, and he says, "Randy, here the camera is. I need for you to get the gun on camera." I'm left-handed, so I'm holding it like this. So I had to change.
Right.
Right-handed so that the camera got it, and that's how that scene went. And I went over. I kicked James Caan, got into the car, and that was it. At the end of that scene, Coppola said to me, "You're going to be the most hated man that there ever was. There's not a woman that's going to talk to you." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "You just shot Jimmy Caan." He says, you just shot and killed Sonny Corleone. Do you know how long that I would get emails to me and says, Randy Jurgensen, the man known as the man who shot Sonny Corleone, for the longest of time. I maybe I got rid of Super's Kid, but that title came on to me. Absolutely.
You made Marlon Brando cry. My Santino.
You would go to dinner with Marlon Brando. Jesus, I couldn't put the food down. I mean, you talk about hot. He was married to a Mexican woman. He says, "Dad, this is nothing. You should see what she prepared." Oh, God, yeah. I had a lot of fun, and yes, it turned out to be another career for me. I miss catching the bad guys. I really do.
Me too. Speaking about food, did you used to go to Rayo's with Sonny Grasso? Because I know he was a regular there.
He had his own table.
And that's what I want to explain, just to set this up. People don't know.
I did not go with Sonny. I mean, if Sonny went there 50 times, I'm just pulling that figure out, I went 5. No. Not my style. I just...
Well, for people that don't know, Rayo's is a restaurant. It's been around from the 1800s in Harlem, and it's known for its Italian food. And there's 10 tables. 7 are owned, and then the other 3 are saved for like Martin Scorsese and New York Elite. And
whatchamacallit has a table there.
It'll.
Bo Dietl, I hope you're looking at this. But you know what, Bo? You were far superior, but proved it, than Eddie Egan. You are where you are, and you got yourself there. You did. And I respect that, Bo, and I do.
Let me change gears a little bit. And it's about 2004. My career was winding down, and my partner and I, we had a couple of stolen vehicles. We were a squad, and we we're working on some paperwork. And I see old ledgers, and I'm nosy, cop, and I grab the ledgers and I look at my old partner and I go, "Do you know what this is?" And he goes, "What?" I go, "This is the old homicide logs from the 70s." I go, "I want to fucking take these things home." Right? So I'm thumbing through those things, and for those of you that don't know, the 2-8 precinct was known as this 1 square mile of death, and in a square mile they averaged over 100 homicides a year where Randy worked with Sonny Grasso. And I'm going through that ledger, and almost every homicide, Grasso, it would have the name, the victim, the detective working on the case, the location, the means of how they died, closed or not closed, and it was Jurgensen and Grasso, probably 2/3 of those names, and you closed a lot of them. And what I couldn't believe, Randy, was, yeah, most of the homicides were firearms, but I couldn't believe the inventive ways that people killed each other. I saw pool cues. There was a woman that poured boiling hot water or oil on her husband as he slept. I mean, it was some crazy shit in there, and you guys were in the thick of it.
We had one where he forced J.O. rat poison paste down. It took her a couple of days, but she died. She died. Sonny, if Sonny was here, he'd tell you this story. I operated in my own way, and Sonny was my tail. When it came to this, Sonny was my tail. So when I operated, I would get to Harlem Hospital as fast as I could. There's the answer. Not witnesses. The answer is there. So I would get in there, and I'll never forget when this happened. We were going into Harlem Hospital, and there's a guy sitting down smoking a cigarette, and he has a kitchen knife out of the top of his head, and every time he moves, the kitchen knife sways back and forth like this, and the blood is running down. Some of it's getting on the cigarette, and I'm going into the emergency room, and Sonny is stopped almost like frozen, and I get in there, push the through doors, and the guy's laying down there, and Brown Sugar is playing loud. They're playing Brown Sugar, and I get in there. The doctor is a German doctor, huge, big doctor, and I walk up to the guy and I said, "You know you're gonna die. You know you're going to die. Tell me who did this. You know you're going to die." Right? The doctor, "Who are you?" Whatever it is, this, that, and so forth. And I said, "I'm Patrolman Eveready. I'm Patrolman Eveready." And I did this about 6 or 7 times. And finally, I'll tell you what the cap was, you know. And of course, they called the 32nd precinct, which Harlem Hospital's local. I'm working in the 2-8, and they're looking for Patrolman Eveready. To make a complaint. Oh, okay. So that goes on. This goes on for months. So I'm going down to make a gun collar. My information, I'm going to tell you right now. Remember I told you about Clint, the numbers man?
Yeah.
Clint, look, I need this. I got it. The only thing he couldn't help me with was the Black Liberation Army. He could not. That's how well they... So I go down to make this gun collar, and specifically from another precinct, the gun is wanted more than the guy. So I go down and I make this gun collar, and I take 2 uniformed men with me. And it never was detective. It was always, "Hey, Randy, okay, come on, let's go. We're going to have some fun." We're down there, kick in the door, boom, bada boom, get it, and I get the guy, and the cops are searching, and they find the gun. So they get the gun. I said, "Okay, let's go." We go back, and of course, I got the collar. So I go to the 124 man, and they're standing there, and I said, "These cops have to be written up. The spectacular job that they did, they have to be written up." And one of the cops says, "But Randy, we would like for you to be on there." And I said, "Put Patrolman Eveready." Son of a bitch. They wrote the damn thing up, and it went downtown, and the EPD came up, and they're looking for Patrolman Eveready. That's when my boss called me in, and he said, "Randy, whenever the boss called me in, and he would say, Randy, but whenever the boss called you in and he said, Jurgensen, I knew it was a problem. So he says, for Christ's sake, he says, is there a patrolman ever ready? You know what I said to him? I said, no, he's being promoted to Detective McCann. And you know what that is.
Tom McCann.
No. You get these things that are going to go nowhere, and the detective puts it right in the can.
Oh, okay.
Put this shit right in there. And he said to me, he said, well, what am I going to do with you? What am I going to do with you? So, yeah, I retired ever ready after that.
Let me ask you this. You started this, but when we were off camera, you said that you guys arrested Black Liberation Army guy Twyman Myers, and you said that ended Sonny Grasso's career before he was shot. What was the story with that?
We're working in Harlem, and we get a call that there's a man with narcotics. I didn't get the call, and it's down there. And Sonny says, it's narcotics. I didn't have a good feeling about this. I did not. I said, okay, we'll go down. Once again, I'm first out of the car, and here comes a guy walking up the street. And this is no drug addict. And this guy's walking up the street. I'm a seasoned 2-8 detective by this time. And he's coming up the street. And I see a woman on the stairs. So as we get there, the guy comes forward, and Sonny comes around me and grabs the guy. As he grabs the guy, Sonny grabs both hands. As he grabs both hands, bullets, not a gun, bullets fall on the sidewalk. They fall on the sidewalk. And as I'm going to get the guy, and Sonny's holding his own with this guy, and I see her, and she pulls out a gun. Sure. But she's shouting, screaming, let him go, whatever it is. This guy actually picks up Sonny Grasso and gets him onto the stairwell while I'm trying to get up the stairs to get to her, to get to the gun. She runs inside the vestibule. By now, the guy has shaken somewhat loose of Sonny, but Sonny's got him by the foot, and now we're in the vestibule, and the guy's going up the stairs, right? She's in the back of the hallway, and there's a guy at the top of the stairs. I see the guy at the top of the stairs. So I'm only able to give the guy going up the stairs a whack. I only could do that. And then Sonny finally got him, and he got him around the neck, and they're halfway up the stairs. And the guy that's standing at the top of the stairs, he's moving back and forth like that, and I see a gun. And I let it go. And I hit him. There was blood. Hit him. And he disappeared. And then Sonny came over the side of the banister, fell completely right down. I heard it. I heard the leg. He fell on top of him. And before I could get there, I turned around, and there she is with the gun. I was able to reach around, grab the gun, right? I gave her a whack that knocked her into next week, and I was able to get the guy, but Sonny had him by now, and we put him in cuffs. And the guy was Twyman Myers. And the guy that I shot at the top of the stairs, we would later find out, was Robert Vickers. Now, he went to Harlem Hospital, and he went to downtown Lincoln. And at that time, Lincoln was not reporting. There were
gunshot wounds.
Gunshot wounds. So Robert Vickers and I went around a few times. Finally, this last time, they got him third time with drugs, and he's gone away. Robert Vickers was always suspect. They call it person of interest today. He was always suspect in the Foster Laurie shooting. 2 Vietnam veterans decorated to come home to be killed in the city of New York. in the streets of New York. They
Who was the
survived.
female?
Huh?
Who was the female?
Phyllis Pollard.
What was her name?
Phyllis Pollard. I locked her up. Phyllis Pollard. And then, statute of limitations, who cares about anything like that? And of course, Twyman Myers made bail. He made bail. Gone. So I got a hold of, and then downtown came and said, "Do you know who Twyman Myers is? You know?" I said, "No, I don't. I don't. I knew anything. Do you know where he is?" And I said, I'll do the best that I can." And and I'll always remember this. Nick Cirillo said, if anybody can find him, it's going to be Jurgensen, especially if he's in Harlem. And so I would meet her in Mount Morris Park. She gave me up Twyman's brother. She gave me up Twyman's brother. And we got a location. We got a location of where it was. And I did not sit on the stakeout. I had nothing to do with that. They were developing their own information. Very good information, by the way. And so one night, I'm in my apartment, and I'm playing chess and drinking wine with my girlfriend, who is today my wife. And the telephone rang, and it was Tommy Lyons, and he said, "Randy, Tinton Avenue. I think he's coming out. Blah blah blah." And I think he's armed. I said, "I'll be right there." I just hung up the phone. I went into the closet. I took out my shotgun. I got dressed, and I said to her, "I'll be back as soon as I can. Nothing to worry about." And I went. And as I got there, the shots were being fired. As I got there, and I raced as the last shots were being fired. He had a machine pistol, and I rolled him over, and I identified him. I never fired a shot. And so that was the end of that. So now, this is a couple, 3 hours, blah, blah, blah. And I get on the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning. I call my mother. And I said, "This is going to be in the paper. This is going to be on the news. Not to worry, Mom, I'm okay." And she says, "Yes, I love you, son." Blah, blah, blah. That was it. So forth and so on. She had already met Lynn. She knew about. And I said, "I'm with Lynn. Everything is fine." She said, "Okay." So I come back to the apartment, and Lynn is sleeping. Lynn is sleeping. And I come back and I said, "Okay, hon, everything's okay. Come on, I'm going to drive you home. I know I got to be in. I'm going to drive you home." And she just sat up and she said, "I saw you on television." I said, "What?" She said, "I saw you on television." She turned the television on, and the damn thing, they were there, and I never even knew it. She knew it, and she knew exactly what was happening and so forth and so on. This is a 23-year-old girl born and raised in a village of 8,000 that has exactly 9 cops and a volunteer fire department. But her father was the biggest bookmaker there was in Lower Westchester. So when we got married, it was, and they always referred to me as the narc. The bookmaker's daughter's marrying the narc. That's how we got married.
You can't stay. It just seems like numbers. Policy followed you through your whole life.
Yeah, I still play lotto.
All right, Randy, listen, it's been 2 hours. I'm going to wrap this up. I could talk to you all night, but it's not fair. I'll wrap this up. I'm going to plug your book again.
I so dominated this.
No, it's...
No, but
Randy, Randy, you kidding me? This is a pleasure for me.
Cut me off. I told you to,
I'm not going to do that because you have no idea how I followed your career. So this is a big deal to me. So no, trust me, you were fine.
I have 308 homicide collars, and it's a matter of court record. I was testifying in the case. I'm considered an expert court in testimony, and I personally have arrested 5 cop killers. The only one is Phil Cardello.
Well, you solved that case. You made the arrest. It's
right. The case is solved. Okay.
okay. Randy, I want to thank you so much for doing this interview. You, Sonny Grasso, Eddie Egan had such an impact on my childhood that I wanted to become an NYPD detective, and I thank you.
It's such a pleasure. It's such a pleasure. You know what? I just feel like it gets out there, you know. And what's important? I'm not blowing smoke. What's important is that the person that I'm speaking to understands it.
I do.
Gets it. You know what I'm saying? Gets it. You know. I could tell this story to the guy in the street, and you know what I mean?
No, I get it. I mean, and listen, we work for the same company, you know, and we did a lot of the same things. I mean, my career was nowhere near like yours, but even so, I think I had a great career. And
I know you did.
I also want to thank everyone for tuning in, especially my friends in Houston, Texas, Staten Island, Rochester, New York, Port Talbot, Brook Park, Ohio, and Nova Scotia. If you work in law enforcement or have an interesting criminal background and would like to be a guest on the show, please drop me a note on Twitter or Instagram at VicFerrari50. Be sure to check out the Randy Jurgensen's book, again, Circle of Six, the true story of New York's most notorious cop killer and the cop who risked everything to catch him. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever great books are sold. And I'll post the link for his book on this episode. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and I'll have another episode out next week. Randy, thank you again.